नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So thank you all very much for for joining this session. We have been discussing from the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is titled as Karma Yoga. So I will do a quick recap of what we have seen. Yeah, last time we could not start any new verses. We just had an opportunity for recap and some Q&A. Today, hopefully, we will get to cover some verses today. So, a quick recap. Arjuna asked Krishna that Krishna, you actually in the previous chapter told that jnana is better than karma or buddhi is better than karma. But interestingly, you asked me to perform karma yoga. So if jnana is better than karma, then why did you ask me to perform karma yoga? Shouldn't I just perform jnana yoga? This was the question asked by Arjuna. And this question was asked because Arjuna very clearly mentioned in the first chapter that he is not, he is better to guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhakshamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bunjiya bhogan rudira pradignan. So he very clearly indicates that better than killing my guru and grandfather, I would prefer to actually take I would actually prefer to beg and subsist on begging, which means he was willing to take up sannyas. So he had that inclination for that because he didn't want to kill his grandfather and guru and other such relatives also who were there. So now with that inclination, Arjuna is certainly a little bit disappointed when Krishna said, Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Do your karma, do your varnashram duty. So Arjuna is asking, oh, but didn't you say that jnana is better? Jnana or karma sannyas, giving up one's prescribed duty is better. You glorified the Sthita Pragya so much, and the Sthita Pragya does not perform his prescribed duty. So why are you not allowing me to give up my prescribed duty and take up to sannyas? Isn't sannyas better than grahastha ashram? Isn't sannyas ashram better than grahastha ashram? Isn't jnana better than karma? Because karma is generally practiced in the grahastha life, and sannyas is taken. Jnana yoga is practiced at the stage of sannyas. So better. He says, if you say jnana is better than karma, which means if you say sannyas is better than grihastha, like then why you are not allowing me to do it? So Krishna says, look, I did give two types of instructions. I did ask you to perform karma in second chapter, no doubt, and I did glorify jnana. I am not denying either of these that you are mentioning. But the point is, just because it is better does not mean you are qualified to do it. You should consider qualification, adhikar. So therefore he says, Lokesmin vividha nishta pura prokta mayanaga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. He says, there are two kinds of qualified people, my dear Arjuna. There are people who are qualified for jnana and they are known as jnana yogis and they practice jnana yoga. And there are people who have karma adhikar who practice karma yoga. So you should find out what your adhikar is and you should perform that. And then Krishna says that न कर्मणाम अनारंभान नैष्कर्म्यम पुरुषोष्णुते न च संन्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति. So he says that, my dear Arjuna, without perfecting your practice of varnashrama dharma, you cannot attain the purity that is needed to perform sannyas. But without purification of heart, by prematurely giving up your prescribed duties and taking up to sannyas, you cannot attain perfection. Nacha sannyasana siddhim samadhigacchati. ठीक है, मैं अभी संन्यास ले लेता हूं, तो I will progress. Without qualification, sannyas is of no sannyas. By taking up to sannyas, you cannot progress. And because you are not purified, nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit karyate hi avashak karma sarva prakriti jair gunaihi. He says that understand that nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. A conditioned soul like you, O Arjuna, cannot remain without performing any activity even for a moment. Why? Prakriti jair gunaihi. Because there are gunas arising from Prakriti in the form of vasanas. There are Sattva-guni vasanas, Rajoguni vasanas, and Tamoguni vasanas, which will naturally push you to perform activities. Okay. So therefore, even for a moment, you cannot not perform any action. So you may take up sannyas, but mind you, you are taking up to this sannyas along with your material desires. It's not that you are free of material desires. So those material desires sooner or later will push you to perform some action. And because those actions will not be according to the prescription of the scriptures, you will get sinful reactions. You will get sinful reactions for sure. So that's what he says. And then he says, Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyartan vimudatma mityachara sochate. But Arjuna says, no, don't worry about it. I have very good confidence on my self-control. I am pretty sure I can control my senses. That I will not engage my senses in any kind of activities of sense gratification. So therefore, I think I am qualified to take sannyas. Krishna says, you fool, you think if you don't engage your senses in sense objects, you think you are qualified for sannyas? Sannyasi does not mean one who does not engage in sense gratification. A sannyasi means one who does not get even a sense gratificatory desire also. Can you give that assurance? So this is something very high standard. Well, I can assure that I will not engage in sense gratification, but to not even get sense gratificatory desire, that's like a tall order. So, so he says that, so there are, so Krishna says that a person who thinks that I can manage to practice sannyas because I will not engage my senses and my sense objects, but still his mind gets desires for sense gratification, such a person is a mithyachari sannyasi. Mithyachari sannyasi means one who is misguided. He need not necessarily be a pretender in the sense that he wants to cheat people. He does not want to cheat people, but he's cheating himself because of his misunderstanding of what constitutes sannyas. What is the prerequisite for sannyas? He does not understand that by this kind of practice of sannyas, sense gratificatory desires will not go away. Sense gratificatory desires will go away by practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga, not otherwise. Okay. So then he says, yes to Indriyani Manasa Niyamnyarabate Arjuna Karmendriyahi Karma Yogam Asaktaha Savishishyate. So better than an unqualified sannyasi is a qualified grihastha. That's what he's telling. A qualified grihastha practicing karma yoga is better than an unqualified sannyasi practicing jnana yoga. So that's what he is indicating here. So then he continues. He says, Niyatam kuru karmatvam karmajyayo hi akarmanah shira yatra pichate na prasiddhyeda karmanah. So he says, therefore, Niyatam kuru karmatvam. This is the second time directly Krishna is addressing Arjuna by telling Niyatam kuru karmatvam. This is the same as karmanyevadikaraste. You are qualified to practice karma only, Arjuna, not give up karma. Karma sannyas is not for you yet. You are not yet qualified for karma sannyas. To give up your varnashrama duty, you have to practice it. Karma jayo hi akarmanaha. So to perform activity is better than not performing your prescribed duty for you, Arjuna. Sharira yatra pichate na prasiddhyeda karmanaha. You will not even be able to maintain your body by giving up your prescribed duties. So don't even consider giving up your prescribed duties. So this is direct instruction he gives to Arjuna. So then he says, then the question is, how should one perform? Because Arjuna may say, look, you are pushing me to perform karma, karma, karma. But the Shastras very clearly say that karma, by engaging in karma, one gets reaction also. So why you are pushing me, and by reaction I will get rebirth. So better than that, I will not engage in all this karma, take up sannyas. Na. So that way, there is no reaction, there is no rebirth. There is no reaction, there is no rebirth. So Krishna says, no, don't worry. This is not the right understanding. Action does not necessarily lead to reaction. There is a proper kind of action which when performed, it will not lead to reaction. What is that? Yagyartat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. He says, if you perform activities which are prescribed in the Shastras, activities which are prescribed in the Dharma Shastras for a grihastha like you, according to your Varna and Ashrama, which are called as sacrifices, and offer the fruits to the Lord, then that kind of karma does not bind one. Yagyartat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So without attachment, perform those activities which are prescribed for you according to your Varna and Ashrama and offer the fruits to Krishna. No binding. So it is not right that all kinds of action leads to reaction. These kind of yagyartat karma does not lead to reaction. This is what Krishna says. Then he says that these yagyas were created by Krishna. These yagyas were created by Brahmaji along when he was creating the bodies of the living entities, human beings. Along with the human beings, he also created the yagya according to their Varna and Ashrama. Sahayagya prajasrishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prashavishadvam yeshavostu ishtakamaduk. So he said, my dear human beings, you along with I have created these yagyas for you. If you perform these yagyas, all your material desires will be fulfilled. Okay. So he says that don't think that you have to perform the yagyas only without material desires. Even if you have material desires, your desires will be fulfilled by practicing yagya only. How? So he says, Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreyah param avapsita. Look, you perform the yagya primarily for Vishnu only, but along with Vishnu, the demigods will also get their share of that sacrifice. And when the demigods get their share of the sacrifice, being very pleased with you, they will give you all the facilities like rain and clouds and water, everything, sunlight, wind, everything that you need to live in this world comfortably, you will all get it through the demigods. So, Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreyah paramavapsita. You please them by performing the yagyas, they will please you by giving you the amenities. They will be pleased, you will be pleased, both of you please each other in this way and be happy. So, Ishtan Bogan he dasyante yagya bhavita datta napradayabhyo yo bhungte stena eva saha. He says that but when you accept the amenities which are provided by the devatas, but do not please them by performing these sacrifices, then you are a thief. So here, a very important point, often misunderstood concept that is being presented here by Krishna is that Krishna does not say that if you don't perform yajna, you will not get the amenities from the demigods. The point is, you can get the amenities, you can enjoy the amenities, but then you will also have to suffer for not having performed the yajna later. Okay. So therefore, it is not true that, oh, someone should not say that, oh, what is the big deal? I am not practicing. This whole country does not practice any yajna. In Western countries who performs yajna, but still water is coming, grains are coming. In fact, you are talking about India, everyone, many people performing yajnas, but still India is importing grains from those countries where no one performs yajna. So this whole thing of yajna is bogus, someone may say. This is not, this is due to a misunderstanding of the principles of Shastra. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not say if you don't perform yajna, you will not get rain and grain and all that. You will get. But along with that, you will have to suffer sinful reactions. That is the point. Yajna shishtashinas santo muchyante sarvakilvishaihi bunjate te tvagam papa ye pachanti atmakarana. So one who does not, by one who accepts these amenities but does not and enjoys them, but without properly performing the yajnas, they are eating only sins or they are enjoying only sins. They will have to suffer for that. Okay. Then he says that annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yagyad bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava karma brahmodbhavam viddhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagye pratishtitam. So he gives this cycle. Okay. So he says that the humans persist due to food. Food comes from rain. Rain comes from sacrifice. And sacrifice is given, sacrifice is a part of the prescribed duties which are prescribed to particular varna and ashrama. And then he says the prescribed duties are given in the Vedas, and the Vedas come from the breathing of the Supreme Lord. In this way, every sacrifice is connected to the Supreme Lord. So by performing the sacrifices, the Supreme Lord is pleased in this way. Okay. So evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayati hayah agayur indriyaramo mogam parthas jivati. So evam pravartitam chakram. One who does not follow this chakra. What is the chakra? Being performs sacrifice. From sacrifice comes rain. From rain comes food. The human being eats the food but performs the sacrifice. And from sacrifice rain comes. From rain food comes. Human being eats the food. This is the cycle. So one who does not follow this cycle and just tries to eat the food and enjoy the rain, but not perform sacrifice, aghayur, he is living a life of sin. Indriya aramo, he is living just for the pleasure of his senses. Uh, so his life is in vain. Even though he may get some meager pleasures now, the extent to which he will have to suffer for not performing these yagyas and these prescribed duties according to his varna and ashrama, it's going to be serious suffering he is going to suffer. That's what he's telling. So this is where we ended our discussion last week or the week before that. But before we start today's discussion, if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, and we will take. Okay, if there is none, we will continue our discussion. Okay. Next, Krishna says, Yastu atmaratireva syad atmatriptascha manavah atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. So he says, now, who is qualified to give up varnashrama prescribed duties? Okay, who is qualified to give up varnashrama prescribed duties? He says, Manavaha, a human being, yastu atmaratireva syad. Atmaratir eva. He is attached only to the Atma. Atmarati, his rati or attraction is only for the Atma. Atma triptaha, who is completely satisfied only in the Atma. Atman eva cha santushtaha, and completely satisfied with Atma alone. There is a difference. तो एक है आप मुझे थोड़ा दाल रोटी दे दो मैं संतुष्ट हो जाऊंगा. So this is the meaning of आत्म तृप्त. आत्मा से तृप्त है वो. आत्मन ये वही संतुष्ट मीन्स आत्मा से ही तृप्त है और किसी वस्तु से वो तृप्त नहीं है. So one who takes pleasure in Atma, one who is satisfied with Atma, and one who is satisfied only with Atma, not with any material things, tasya karyam na vidyate. He does not have to perform any prescribed duties, varnashram prescribed duties. Again, I will just remind you that this chapter is a comparison between Nishkama Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. There is no discussion about bhakti in this chapter. Okay. So therefore, someone should not say that a devotee, as a devotee, am I attracted to Atma? Probably not. Am I satisfied with the Atma? No. Am I completely satisfied with Atma alone and not any material things? No. So should I perform varnashram prescribed duties? No. That is not needed. Is that mandatory? No. So what does varnashram do? What does varnashram activity do to a person? In order, how does performing varnashram activity make one into an atmarati? So the purpose of performing varnashram duties is twofold. One is a living entity needs satisfaction. So this is the purpose of varnashram. So varnashram purpose is twofold. Okay. First is satisfactory engagement according to one's nature. Okay. Then second is purification of that nature. These are the true things which Varnashram, by performing Varnashram, it accomplishes two things. One is satisfactory engagement according to one's nature, that is given by Varnashram, and then purification of that nature eventually. So that when the nature gets purified, so then he can meditate on Atma. Okay. Now, for a devotee, okay, for a devotee, what does bhakti do? Okay. Okay. Does bhakti give one satisfactory engagement according to its nature? Yes, why not? Okay, even engaging in a profession that gives one satisfaction is not outside the realm of bhakti. Okay. Even though bhakti has 64 limbs and 64 primary limbs, and there are many secondary limbs also. You know, anything that is performed for supporting Shravanam Kirtanam, including one's own occupational duties, also falls within the category of bhakti only. So bhakti gives one satisfactory engagement according to one's nature. Okay. And also bhakti purifies one's nature. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, right? Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam. So Cheto darpanamarjanam is by chanting the holy name only. Okay. Or as Rupa Goswami says, kleshagni. Kleshagni means purification of the kleshas. And one of the aspects of klesha is sinful vasanas. Also sinful desires. All of that is wiped out by bhakti. So what Varnashram can essentially do for a karma yogi, bhakti can do the same thing and more for a bhakti yogi. That is why the Shastras, whether it is Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, very clearly says that for a Jnana yogi and for a bhakti yogi, there is no reason or need to perform Varnashram because bhakti can accomplish the same purpose. Okay, so tasya karyam na vidyate. But anyway, here in this particular chapter, there is a comparison essentially between Nishkama Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. That's all. Okay, so a Nishkama Karma Yogi and a Jnana Yogi have the same purpose. Their purpose is the same. Their goal is the same. A Nishkama Karma Yogi and a Jnana Yogi both aim for liberation only. Whereas a Nishkama Karma Yogi, he cannot directly meditate on the Atma because his heart is not purified of anarthas. And along with anarthas, it is not possible for a Nishkama Karma Yogi to meditate on the Atma, on self-realization. So, whereas a Jnana Yogi can meditate on Atma because his heart is purified of material vasanas. But otherwise, you can say like Nishkama Karma Yogi is like a sadhaka and a Jnani is like a siddha. A Jnana Yogi is like a siddha. Both are following the same process. Nishkama Karma Yoga only matures into Jnana Yoga. These are not two different things. Yoga only matures into Jnana Yoga. So he says here, so yes to Atmaratireva Syat, the human being who is attracted to the Atma, who is satisfied in the Atma and completely satisfied with Atma alone and nothing else, he has nothing to do in regards to fulfilling desires. Tasya karyam na vidyate. So he need not perform varnashram duties. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says here, it has now been stated that if you cannot be without desires, you can perform actions with desires. If you cannot be without desires, you can perform actions with desires. But he who reaches the stage of jnana because of purity of heart never performs actions out of desire. That is expressed in two verses. So 17th verse and the 18th verse. So because he is enjoying in the self, he is blissful by realization of the bliss of the Atma. He does not engage at all in the pleasure of material objects. Being engaged only in the Atma, he does not perform any actions related to the external objects. Tasya karyam na vidyate. So he does not perform any actions related to the external objects, includes the varnashram duties. There is no need for him to engage in any of that. Okay. So then in the next verse, Krishna says, Naiva tasya kritenarto na kriteneha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschid artavyapashrayah. Na eva artah. He does not gain. He refers to a jnana yogi or an atmarati, one who takes pleasure only in the Atma. He does not gain anything by tasya kritena, by performance of action. Action here refers to varnashram duties. Okay. So he does not gain anything by performing varnashram duties, nor does he lose by performing action. Na akritena iha kaschana. Okay. He does not gain anything by performing varnashram duties. He does not lose anything by not performing varnashram duties. Asya, for him, na kaschid sarva bhuteshu, nothing in this world, artha vyapashraya, is worthy of pursuing for fulfilling his desires. There is nothing in this world that attracts him. So therefore, for him to perform varnashram duties is no utility. So now we have to understand, okay, there is a sakama karma yogi, okay, there is nishkama karma yogi, there is jnana yogi, and then there is bhakti yogi. Okay, you can put ashtanga yogi also in the same category as jnana yogi. Okay, so we will try to see, because here in this verse Krishna says and a jnana yogi does not gain anything by performing varnashram duties. He does not lose anything by not performing varnashram duties. So let us try to understand what each of these categories of people, what do they gain by performing varnashram duties, and what performing varnashram duties. Okay, a sakama karma yogi, what does he gain by performance of varnashram duties? Perform varnashram, not perform varnashram. Okay, okay, this column has no, there is no need. This column is not needed actually. Okay, what does a sakama karma yogi gain by performance of varnashram? He gains piety. And if he does not perform varnashram, what happens? He will get sins. An Nishkama Karma Yogi, when he performs varnashram duty, what happens? Purification. Okay. And if he neglects to perform varnashram duties, he gets sins. A Jnana Yogi or an Ashtanga Yogi, what does he gain by performing varnashram duties? Nothing. What does he lose by neglecting varnashram duties? Nothing. A Bhakti Yogi, what does he gain by performing varnashram duties? Nothing. What does he lose by not performing varnashram duties? Nothing. This is what the Shastras say. So naivatasya kritenarto na kriteneha kaschana nachasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid artha. Okay. By performance of action, there is no accrual of desired results. This is for a Jnana Yogi. And by not performance of the actions, there is no loss, because nothing in this whole universe, from Brahma down to the inanimate objects, is a worthy object of shelter for fulfilling his desires. Because he does not want anything of this world, he does not lose anything by not performing his varnashram duties. The word Vyapashraya is used as follows. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhaktim Udvahatam Nanam Jnana Vairagya Viryanam Neha Kaschid Vyapashraya. Persons having bhakti for Vasudev, endowed with Jnana and Vairagya, do not take shelter elsewhere. So the word Vyapashraya is used to indicate shelter. Kaschid Artha Vyapashraya. He is not dependent on anything of this world. He does not take shelter of anything of this world. Or Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abira Shumba Yavanaha Kasadaya Yenyecha Papa Yadapashraya Ashraya Shuddyanti Tasme Prabha Vishnave Namaha. So the word Apashraya or Vyapashraya is used for indicating shelter. So he does not need shelter from anything of this world. So he has no need for performing the varnashram activities. And another word Apashraya is used here. From these statements, it is seen that the addition of apa to ashraya has the meaning of perfect shelter rather than, even though the word apashraya can mean no shelter. So apashraya here rather indicates full shelter. Vyapashraya, apashraya, like that. Like that. Okay. So here in these two verses, 3.17 and 18, Krishna very clearly says, O Arjuna, if you are an Atmarati, then you don't have to perform prescribed duties. He does not gain anything from performing varnashram duties, nor does he lose anything by not performing varnashram duties. Like that. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask? Okay, let's continue then. So here now Krishna says Tasmad. Tasmad means therefore. Therefore means he is concluding something. Okay, he is going to conclude something. Tasmad asaktaha satatam karyam karma samachara. Asakto hi acharan karma param apnoti purushaha. He says, Tasmad, therefore, O Arjuna, satatam karyam karma samachara. Therefore, you should always perform prescribed actions. So what does this word tasmat refer to? So if you connect the last two verses and this verse where Krishna is telling, therefore you should perform prescribed duties, what is the meaning of this word tasmat? Anyone would like to answer this question? What is the meaning of tasmat? Why is Krishna telling therefore? Therefore perform your prescribed duties. What is the meaning of that? Anyone would like to answer? Please raise your hands and please answer. Very simple. Very simple. You can be wrong. That's not a problem. Otherwise, it will be a one-sided monologue. It's not so much fun. Vrajaraja Mataji says for purification of heart. Okay, yeah, fine, correct. Not wrong, not wrong. But I'm looking for a more appropriate explanation. Why is Krishna telling here? Therefore, you should perform your prescribed duties, O Arjuna. What is the meaning of that therefore? In connection with the last two verses that we have discussed. Can you explain? Anyone would like to answer? Try. Okay, someone else has answered. Okay, therefore, to become an Atmarati, perform your prescribed duties. You have come quite close. The answer is now now that I have told you, Arjuna, that only an Atmarati need not perform prescribed duty, and because you are not an Atmarati, you should perform your prescribed duties. Tasmad asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara. You should perform your prescribed duties, but asaktah, without attachment. You are neither qualified for Jnana Yoga nor you are qualified for Sakama Karma Yoga. You are qualified for Nishkama Karma Yoga. Therefore, asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara. Perform your varnashram duties without attachment. Asakto hi acharan karma param apnoti purushah. Performing action without attachment, a person attains liberation. So, performing actions without attachment, a person attains liberation. That's what he's telling here. So, therefore, what is the meaning of therefore? Since you do not have qualification for rising to the platform of Jnana and performing actions with desires is not suitable for you, since you have spiritual intelligence, you should perform actions without desire. So, Arjuna is not qualified for Sakama Karma. Why? Because he has no desire to enjoy in this material world. But he is not qualified for Jnana also. Why? Because he is not just satisfied with the soul. So he is qualified for Nishkama Karma Yoga. So what is the qualification for Nishkama Karma Yoga? The qualification for Nishkama Karma Yoga is his aspiration should be liberation, but sufficient purification of heart has not been accomplished so that he can meditate on Atma directly. So such a person, he should in a detached way perform his varnashram duties so that gradually his heart becomes purified. And when the heart becomes purified completely, then he can take up to meditation on Atma. So therefore he says, Arjuna, you should not perform Sakama Karma Yoga because you don't have any material desire to be accomplished. And you are not qualified to practice Jnana Yoga also because your heart is not purified. Thing that you should practice is Nishkama Karma Yoga. Tasmad asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara. Perform your prescribed duties without attachment for the material results that come from your prescribed duties. That's what here Krishna is telling. That is explained in this verse. Therefore, you should perform obligatory prescribed actions without attachment. By doing this, you will attain liberation. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions, anything anyone would like to share as and? Okay, if there is none, then we will continue our discussion. So next, कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः लोकसंग्रहमेवापि संपश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि. So he says that कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः. So samsiddhim means success. So great kings like Janaka Maharaj, they did perform their prescribed actions. Only by that they attained success. Success means what? Janak Maharaj, this particular Janak Maharaj who is being described here by Krishna here, he was a very nice king, but later he took up to sannyas, or he gave up his prescribed duty later. And Arjuna may say, Arey, not their Kshatriya duties. Janak Maharaj did not perform. He eventually gave up his prescribed duties. So Krishna says, Arey, sahi hai. He did give up his prescribed duties, but he gave up only after reaching the stage of Atmarati by performing his prescribed duties. उन्होंने आत्मरति का स्तर प्राप्त करने के बाद उनका वर्णाश्रम ड्यूटीज को छोड़ा, पर आप तो वो स्तर को प्राप्त किया ही नहीं, उसके पहले आप कैसे वर्णाश्रम ड्यूटीज को छोड़ सकते हैं? सही है, जनक महाराज ने ये बात तो सही है कि उन्होंने बाद में उनका वर्णाश्रम क्षत्रिय धर्म को त्याग दिया, पर कब त्यागा? जब उन्होंने वो आत्मरति का स्तर प्राप्त करने के लिए त्यागा, करने के बाद त्यागा। आप वो करने से पहले ही त्यागने का सोच रहे हैं, वो गलत। एंड वो ही जनक महाराज ने आत्मरति का स्तर का प्राप्ति कैसे किया? ऐसे प्राप्त किया, उन्होंने उनका प्रिस्क्राइब्ड ड्यूटीज, वर्णाश्रम धर्म को पालन करने के द्वारा ही वो आत्मरति का स्तर को प्राप्त किया. He attained the position of an आत्मरति only by practice of his varnashram dharma. But you have not attained that situation. You have not attained that position. You are not an atmarati. So how can you give up your prescribed duties? That is what here is telling. And if you think, oh Arjuna, nahi, मैं भी आत्मरति का स्तर प्राप्त कर चुका हूं. I have attained the position of an आत्मरति. लोक संग्रहमेवापि संपश्यन् कर्तुम् अर्हसि. Still, for setting the right example for others, loka sangraham means for setting the right example for others, you should perform your prescribed duties. Because as a Kshatriya, people look up to you. You are the role model for your citizens. As a Kshatriya, if you give up your varnashram prescribed duties, then the people under you will also think that हाँ चलेगा, मतलब varnashram duties को छोड़ेंगे तो चलेगा. They will think like that. So he says, loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. At least for setting the right example for the people under you, your citizens, you should perform your varnashram prescribed duties. This is what Krishna is telling here to Arjuna. So, purport, he gives proof of such actions in the first part of the verse. In the second part of the verse, he says that if you think you are qualified for jnana, even then you should perform action in order to teach the people, because you are a leader. You are a leader, so therefore you should definitely not give up your prescribed duties, even if you think you are qualified for jnana, because people look up to you. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask? Okay, let's continue. यद्यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते. Yadyad acharati shreshtaha, whatever actions a superior like you performs, whatever actions, you are a king, you are a shreshta, whatever a Shrestha like you performs, tattad eva itaro jana. Other common people will follow that. Sayat pramanam kurute. And whatever spiritual authority, whatever authority you accept, sayat pramanam kurute. What you do according to scripture authority, lokastad anuvartate. Other people will follow that. So that's what he says. Yadyad acharati shreshtas tattad eva itaro jana. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. So you should teach by your example. So because if so therefore a Kshatriya, especially if he does not have a successor, as a son who can take over the kingdom, then so what is it telling? That generally 99% of the people will have qualification for karma only, because qualification for jnana and bhakti and yoga are very high. So common people in a kingdom will generally have karma adhikar only. And it is the responsibility of the king to set the right example. Okay. So if the king performs his varna dharma of being a Kshatriya properly, then the people under him their varna dharma of being a Brahmana or a Vaishya or a Shudra properly. So, but if he gives it up prematurely without having a successor ready to take up his job, then people will think, अरे लगता है कि वर्णाश्रम ड्यूटीज को वर्णाश्रम धर्म का पालन नहीं करेंगे तो भी चलेगा. So that will become the problem. And sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. And whatever pramana he follows, the common man will also follow that pramana. So it is the responsibility of a king to externally follow the pramana of dharma shastras. So he has to follow the pramana of dharma shastras. He should follow dharma shastras as the pramana, even though internally, if he is qualified for jnana, he may follow the jnana shastras. If he is qualified for bhakti, he may follow the bhakti shastras. But externally, he has to follow the dharma shastras. Because लोगों को अधिकार के बारे में समझाना उतना easy नहीं है, especially common people. That there are different pramanas for people with different adhikaras. It is very difficult to explain common people because उनका समझ के बाहर है वो. People will think that everyone should have the same shastras. So therefore, the king, understanding this principle, externally he follows the dharma shastra. Even in Bhagavatam, if you see the life of Bharat Maharaj, the life of Ambarish Maharaj, it's very vividly depicted in Bhagavatam. When these kings would, in the public eyes, they used to perfectly follow the dharma shastras. They used to perform the yagyas and all that. But as soon as they get inside their house, when they are out of the public vision, they used to follow only the bhakti shastras and not follow the dharma shastras. And it is very clearly mentioned that when they used to follow the dharma shastras in the public eyes, it used to be without any faith in them, because they had faith only in the bhakti shastras. This is very clearly mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So that is the point. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. अगर किसी को ज्ञान अधिकार या योग अधिकार या भक्ति अधिकार नहीं है, तो उन लोगों को धर्म शास्त्रों का ही पालन करना पड़ेगा. They have to follow the dharma shastras only. So they have to follow the dharma shastras. So it is the responsibility of a king to publicly follow the edicts of the Dharma Shastras so that the followers also accept the same pramana. Sayat pramanam kurute lokasta danuvartate. Whatever pramana the leader accepts, the prajas will accept that same pramana. So therefore, he is telling Arjuna, Arjuna, your next generation leader is not ready. Your next generation leader is not ready. First thing, you yourself have not gained a kingdom to train the person next to you. So you are expected to be a king. As a king, you are expected to follow the Dharma Shastras. Because people, even though by qualification you may think you are qualified for sannyas, but extern that sannyas should be inside your palace. You can follow the Jnana Shastras inside the palace, but you have to follow the Dharma Shastras outside the palace. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Because whatever book you are following will be followed by people under you. And because most people under you, 99% of the people under you will have karma adhikar, therefore you should follow Dharma Shastras. And those who have karma adhikar, they don't have the intelligence to understand that people with different adhikar can follow different Shastras. Therefore, they will not understand that you are qualified for jnana. Therefore, you need not follow Dharma Shastras. They will not understand this. So, better you follow Dharma Shastras. Huh? So that's what he says. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Whatever pramana you accept as guiding light, as guiding scriptures, they will also accept that same pramana. So therefore, you should uh, actually uh, follow your prescribed duties according to the Dharma Shastras. Yadyadacharati shreshtas tattadevetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Like that. So, Srila Vishnu Jagadagu writes, in this verse he explains how the people are taught by following example. Any quick comments before we move ahead? Okay, let's continue. Then Krishna says, you know what, Arjuna, even I follow prescribed duties, even though I am not expected to follow. So he says, Name partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta evacha karmani. For me, O son of Partha, O son of Pritha, na kinchana asti trishu lokeshu. There is nothing in the three worlds, kartavyam, that has to be done. There is no prescribed duty for me in these three worlds. There is no prescribed duty for me in the three worlds. That has to be done. Na anavaptam, and that has not been attained. There is nothing in this world that has not been attained by me. Everything belongs to me only. Avaptavyam, there is nothing in this world which I have to attain. There is nothing. So, which means Krishna is telling, by the strictest definitions, I am qualified for jnana. By the definition. But Krishna is not qualified for jnana. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So, he is not qualified for jnana. So, he says that Vartayeva Chakarmani, but even I perform duties. So, in 3 verses, the Lord uses himself. Even though I don't have any prescribed duties, I have no desire to attain anything in this world, but still I perform my prescribed duties like that. Then he says, Yadi hyaham na varteyam jatu karmanyatantritah mama vartmanuvartante manushyaha partha sarvashah. Yadi hi aham na varteyam. If I were not to engage karmani in my work, atandritah. Tandra. Tandra means lethargy. Atandra means without lethargy, with attention. If I did not engage, if I were not to engage in my duties attentively, jatu at any time, manushyaha mama vartma anuvartante. The people of this world, mama vartma, my path, anuvartante, they would follow. They would follow my path, they would follow my example. Sarvashah in all respects. Okay. So he says that even though I have nothing to do, but I follow properly. He says that if I were not to engage in work attentively at any time, men would follow my example. So therefore, I also follow my prescribed duties. Then he says, Utsideyur imeloka nakuryam karmachedaham sankarasya cha kartasyam upahanyami ma prajaha. If I were not to work, nakuryam karmachedaham, utsideyur imeloka, all people would be destroyed. All people would be destroyed if I would not perform my work. I would be the cause of Varna Sankara. Upahanyam ima praja, and I would pollute the descendants. So that would be Varna Sankara. Because Arjuna said, "Look, Krishna, if I fight and kill people, I would be the cause of Varna Sankara." But Krishna says, no. It's not that if you do not fight, it's not that if you do not fight, it's not that if you fight, there will be Varna Sankara. It's not that if you perform your Varnashram duty, there will be Varna Sankara. Actually, if I do not perform my Varnashram duties, then there will be Varna Sankara. That's what he says. Or he's again suggesting Varna Sankara will not be if you perform your prescribed duty, Arjuna. Rather, if you don't perform your prescribed duty, then there will be Varna Sankara. Because by not performing your prescribed duties, then you are telling that it is okay not to follow the Dharma Shastras. And if people do not follow the Dharma Shastras, their Varna, they will lose their Varna. And if they lose their Varna, there will be Varna Sankara. So Krishna says, your understanding is wrong, Arjuna. It is not that by not fighting it's not that by fighting you will give rise to Varna Sankara, but it is by not fighting and setting the wrong example, you will be the cause of Varna Sankara. Just like if I don't perform my duties, people will follow my example and there will be Varna Sankara. Therefore, he says, even as the Supreme Lord, even Shastras, like that he says. So he says, taking me as an example, the people not performing dharma would be contaminated. Mixed caste would result. I would be the cause of this. I would pollute the progeny. Therefore, I also perform my varnashram duties. So in this way, in 3 verses, Krishna describes how even he performs his duties, even though there is no duty for him. Like that. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add? Okay. Looks like we are really making up for the lost time last week. Practically, I think we are probably going to, set a record for no questions in a class. It's quite strange. Okay. Anyways, Then he says, सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस्तथा सक्तश्चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम्. So he says, यथा अविद्वांसः सक्ताः कर्मणि कुर्वन्ति तथा विद्वान् लोकसङ्ग्रहं चिकीर्षुः asaktaha karmani kuryat. So he says, yata avidvamsaha. Yata means just as. Avidvamsaha means an ignorant person. Here means a sakama karmi. A sakama karma yogi. Yata avidvamsaha, one who is not aware of detached work. Okay. Saktaha karmani kurvanti. Saktaha means with attachment. Karmani kurvanti. Performs actions. Okay. Just as an ignorant one performs actions with attachment, tata, in the same way, vidvan. Vidvan means here a knowledgeable person, but here it refers to a jnana yogi. A jnana yogi, you can say a jnana yogi, who is living in the society and who has the responsibility to set the right example for others. Okay. Loka sangraham chikirshuhu, desiring to teach the people, desiring to set the right example for the people. Asaktaha karmani kuryad. He should perform the same karma, same varnashram duty, asaktaha, without attachment. So he says that even if you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, but still if you are living in the society and if you are seen as a leader, rather than giving up your varnashram prescribed duty, even though you are qualified for it, but you should still perform your prescribed duties without attachment, and in this way set the right example for them. Saktaha karmanya vidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvams tata saktas chikirshur loka sangraham. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, he summarizes here the act should be done even by a person established in jnana. Even a person established in jnana should perform his varnashram prescribed duties to set the right example for others, especially if he um, if he has that responsibility of setting the right example for others. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions? Okay, if there is none, we will continue. बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्. Vidwan, the wise man. So here the wise man refers to one who is qualified for Jnana Yoga. Na buddhi bedam janayet. He should not disturb the intelligence. Na buddhi bedam janayet. Ajnanam, for those who are not knowledgeable. Karma sanginam, who are attached to karma, are attached to the results of the karma. So a Jnana Yogi should not go to a Karma Yogi and say, you know what? Jnana Yoga is better than Karma Yoga. Sannyas is better than Grihastha life. You should not tell them, because an attached householder, without having purified his heart, if he prematurely gives up his grihastha life and his varnashram duties, he will go to hell, because that is, he has given up the means of purification and he will be committing sinful activities. So not performing his varnashram duty in itself is sinful actually. So he says, Vidwan na buddhi bedam janayet. The wise man should not disturb the intelligence of the ignorant attached to the results of work. Rather, samacharan yuktaha, engaging in all work himself with detachment. Sarva karmani joshayet. He should engage them in activity. So don't uh, uh, a sakama karma yogi to give up his karma by telling that jnana is better than karma. Rather, a jnana yogi should also engage, rather a jnana yogi should also engage in nishkama karma yoga. A jnana yogi should also engage in nishkama karma yoga and teach that sakama karma yogi how that same varnashram duties can be performed with attachment to attaining liberation rather than attachment to the meager results, meager mm, fruits of this world. So that's what he says. Na buddhi bedam janayed agyanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. So a jnana yogi, understanding that this person is attached to the fruits of this work, fruits of his work, so therefore he should not be prematurely giving up his varnashram dharma. He does not bewilder him or confuse his intelligence by telling jnana is better than karma or anything. Rather, he himself, even though he is qualified for jnana, he himself engages in karma, but with detachment, in order to set the right example for him. Joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yuktah samacharan. So here Vishwanath Chakravarti says, you should not disturb the minds of those attached to action, their impure hearts, by saying, oh, you know what, this karma is despicable. Give up action and become successful like me by the practice of jnana. आपको पता नहीं कि कर्म से ज्ञान उचित है, तो आप ये कर्म क्यों कर रहे हैं? आप ज्ञान करो, मुक्ति प्राप्त करेगा. You should not tell them. Instead, you should engage them in action by saying, perform action without desire and become successful. Doing those actions, you set an example for others. Okay. Okay. So this is the injunction. The next part of the purport is very, very important part. Very nice part. So just hear that. So he says, but according to the Bhagavatam, this is contrary to the statement of the Lord. Okay. Bhagavatam says, Swayam nishreyasam vidvan na bhakti ajnaya karma hi narati rogino apatyam vanchatopi vishaktamaha. So Bhagavatam's instruction seems to be contradictory to Bhagavad Gita's instruction here. Bhagavad Gita says, na buddhi bedam janayet agyanam karma sankinam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yuktah samacharan. A jnana yogi should not unnecessarily agitate or trouble the intelligence of a person who is attached to the fruits of his actions by telling that jnana is superior to karma, therefore you should give up karma. Rather, himself should perform nishkama karma and teach that person how one can perform action with the aim of liberation. He should show that. But Bhagavatam says something contrary to this. Bhagavatam says, one who knows the highest good will never instruct a foolish person to engage in material enjoyment. Just as an experienced physician does not give his patient food that is injurious to health, even if the patient desires it. So, uh, Bhagavad Gita says, अरे अगर उसको कर्म में ही इच्छा है तो कर्म करने दो, उसको कर्म छोड़ने को प्रेरित मत करो. Whereas Bhagavatam is telling, अरे जिसको, one who understands what is the highest good will not encourage a person to perform karma. तो अभी ये तो एकदम contradictory हो गया, right? So he says, true, but this is in relation to instructions given about bhakti. तो ज्ञान योगी के लिए ये इंस्ट्रक्शन है. This is the instruction for a jnana yogi on how to deal with a sakama karma yogi. That is what this verse says. Whereas this verse talks about instruction to a bhakti yogi about how to deal with a karma yogi. So these two, the instruction for a jnana yogi is don't disturb their intelligence. Instruction for a bhakti yogi is, oh, you can disturb their intelligence. That's what he says. He says true, but this is in relation to instructions given about bhakti. It is not contradictory to give instructions in this way about jnana. Jnana is dependent on purity of the heart, and purity of the heart is dependent on action without desire. Please note this point. This is very, very critical purport. This is very, very foundational to the discussions that we had last week with, Loknath Prabhu. This is very critical. Please note this point. This next part of the purport is very, very important. So he says, it is not contradictory to giving instructions in this way about jnana. Jnana is dependent on purity of the heart, and purity of the heart is dependent on actions without desire, which is Nishkama Karma Yoga. So Nishkama Karma Yoga leads to purity of heart. Then one can practice Jnana Yoga. And before Nishkama Karma Yoga is Sakama Karma Yoga. So, a Jnana Yogi should not speak either to a Sakama Karma Yogi or a Nishkama Karma Yogi, and he should not inspire them to prematurely give up karma, because if they prematurely give up karma and take up to Jnana Yoga will not work without purification of heart. So therefore, this instruction is given for the Jnana Yogi. But bhakti is by nature very strong and is not dependent even on the purity of heart. Bhakti is not dependent on the purity of heart. ऐसा जरूरत नहीं है कि कोई किसी को निष्काम कर्म योगा करके ही हृदय को साफ करके ही भक्ति कर सकते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. Even with an impure heart, one can practice bhakti. If it is possible for you to produce faith in bhakti in the other person, this is very important. If you can create faith in the path of bhakti in that other person, even though that person's heart may not be pure, then you may disturb the minds of those attached to action. For those who have faith in bhakti have no obligation for performing karma. Very important point. This is directly from the acharyas. So if you have faith in the words of the acharyas, you can as it is accept it. But there are many statements from the shastras also which say the same thing, because the acharyas will not speak anything which is not according to the injunctions of the shastras. This is directly Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So if you trust in the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, you can accept it as it is. So he says, so if it is possible for you to produce faith in bhakti in the other person, then you may disturb the minds of those attached to action. For faith in bhakti have no obligation for performing karma. This is very important. First thing, the leaders should learn this. The leaders of Krishna consciousness should learn this. Then they will guide their subordinates accordingly. This is very critical. This should be understood from such statements as the following. Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkata shravanadauva shraddha yavan najayate. As long as one does not become detached from daily and periodic duties, this is the qualification for Jnana Yoga, or has not awakened faith in hearing the topics about me. Shraddha, Adav Shraddha. If Adav Shraddha is there, then even such a person is not obligated to perform any Varnashram duties. So either he has developed detachment by purification of heart, which is the qualification for Jnana Yoga, or if he has developed faith in Bhakti, which is the qualification for Bhakti Yoga. If neither of this qualification is there, tavat karmani kurvita, then he should perform his Varnashram prescribed duties. Either he should have qualification for Jnana Yoga, or he should have qualification for Bhakti Yoga. For if he has qualification for one of these two, then he need not perform duties. If he has qualification for neither of these, he should perform Varnashram duties. Another verse he quotes from Bhagavatam. Dharman santyajya yes sarvan mam bhajet satu sattama. So he says, having taken complete shelter of my lotus feet, however, a saintly person renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He is considered to be the best among all living entities. Dharman santyajya yes sarvan mam bhajet satu sattama. Okay. Then another verse he quotes, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Give up all dharmas and surrender to me alone. Like that. Or Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harer bhajan apakvo tapate tato yadi yatrakva vabhadram abhudamushakim ko varta apto abhajatam swadharmatah. He says, if a person having given up his duties in Varnashrama begins the worship of the Lord's lotus feet, begins, he's not talking about he's not talking about achieving the stage of bhava or prema. He says begins the worship of the Lord's feet. Apakvo va atapate tato yadi, and happens to deviate or not reach perfection. Amushya kim kwa abhadram abod. There is no misfortune for him at all in the future. There is no misfortune for him. Kahava artah swadharmatah abhajatam aptah. Kahava artah aptah. But what does a person gain who is perfect Swadharma, but that practice of Swadharma is devoid of the element of bhakti, bhajan, for the Supreme Lord. So any practice of Varnashram without the element of bhakti does not give any result. Okay. But on the other hand, if a person having given up his Varnashram, if he practices bhakti, and even he may not achieve perfection of bhakti, but still it is there is no loss, like that. Okay. Any final questions before we wind up for the day? Okay. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. We'll continue this discussion again next week. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad jai, Shri Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.